I never thought I'd be telling this story, but here I am broke, blocked, and filling out WIC applications with a pride level below 0. I'm Elise, 27, and I'm about to spill the messiest chapter of my life. You might judge me, but honestly, I don't even blame you. 6 months ago, I was drowning in bills. My apartment rent had gone up for the 3rd time, my car was making that expensive-sounding noise, and my job at the cell phone store wasn't cutting it. I was eating ramen for dinner 4 nights a week and dodging calls from bill collectors like it was an Olympic sport. My roommate Tasha had just moved out, leaving me with the full rent. My credit cards were maxed out, and I was seriously considering moving back in with my mama. That's when I met Demetrius at LaShawn's birthday party. The minute he walked in, everybody noticed. Tall, smell good, fresh haircut, designer everything. I made sure I was wherever he was that night. When he finally approached me at the bar, I already knew what time it was. His watch probably cost more than my car, and he ordered top shelf without even looking at the price. We talked for hours. He owned a chain of barbershops across the city and was opening a beauty supply store. The man had ambition, plans, and most importantly, money. By the end of the night, we'd exchanged numbers, and I was already imagining how this man could change my situation. Our first real date was at this fancy restaurant downtown, where they don't even put prices on the menu. After dinner, in his Benz, he was straight up with me. "I like you a lot, Elise, but I need to keep it real. I'm seeing somebody." I should have walked away right then, but when he dropped me off, he handed me an envelope with 10 crisp $100 bills. Just something to help with whatever you need, no strings. Except there were strings. We both knew it. I looked at that money, thinking about my past due electric bill and the empty fridge. "I don't need your money," I said, but I didn't hand it back. He just smiled. "I want to take care of you. Let me do that." 2 days later, he texted asking if I wanted to go shopping. At the mall, he told me to pick whatever I wanted. That night, at his condo, his second place, as he called it, I finally asked the question. "So what's really going on with your girlfriend?" Me and Shanice been together since college. Her family knows my family. It's complicated. "So where does that leave me?" He came over, lifted my chin. You're my escape, my fun. The one who doesn't stress me out with demands and family drama." "So I'm the side chick," I said plainly. "I prefer the woman who makes me happy. And I want to make you happy too." That's when I made the statement that would eventually become the title of my tragedy. "I don't mind being the side chick if he pays." I didn't say it out loud to him, but I made the decision in my mind. The way I saw it, it was a business arrangement. He needed someone stress-free. I needed financial stability. Maybe it wasn't love, but it was practical. The next morning, he paid my rent. All of it, plus 2 months in advance. By the end of the week, I had a new phone, new clothes, and a refrigerator full of food. For the first time in years, I wasn't constantly checking my bank balance or calculating which bill I could pay late. My friends noticed the change. "Girl, where are you getting all this from?" Keisha asked when I showed up to brunch in designer heels. "I got a sponsor." I joked, but it wasn't really a joke. "You mean a sugar daddy?" she said, not laughing. "Elise, you playing with fire." I rolled my eyes. At least I'm warm now. By month 3, I was fully accustomed to my new lifestyle. Demetrius had given me a credit card connected to his account. My apartment started filling up with expensive things designer bags, shoes I couldn't even walk in properly, jewelry that made me nervous to wear in my own neighborhood. At first, I tried to keep my regular job, but it became harder to care about selling phone cases for minimum wage when Demetrius would send me more money than my weekly paycheck just for a flirty text. I started calling in sick more often, showing up late. 2 weeks after Demetrius suggested I didn't need the job, I quit without even giving notice. With all my new free time, I became obsessed with making myself perfect for Demetrius. I spent hours at the gym, the salon, shopping for outfits I thought would impress him. I rearranged my entire schedule to be available whenever he could see me, which was usually late nights or random afternoons. My friends started noticing how unavailable I'd become. "We never see you anymore," Keisha complained when I canceled our girls' night for the 3rd time. "I'm just busy," I said vaguely. "You mean you're on call?" she shot back. I stopped answering her texts after that. Same with other friends who asked too many questions or made judgmental comments. My world was shrinking, but it felt like it was expanding because the quality of everything in it had improved so dramatically. The red flags were there: how Demetrius never introduced me to any friends or family, how I couldn't post pictures of us together on social media, how he sometimes looked at his phone and immediately needed to leave, how he never stayed the whole night. I convinced myself it was worth it. I was getting the best parts of him: his generosity, his attention when I had it, the material benefits of being with a successful man. His girlfriend Shanice might have his name and public acknowledgement, but I had the passionate nights, the lavish gifts, the cash deposits. Sometimes, though, in quiet moments when he'd just left and I was alone in my apartment surrounded by all the things he'd bought me, I'd wonder what Shanice had that I didn't. Those thoughts became more frequent as I grew more attached. What had started as a practical arrangement was becoming emotional for me. "What would happen if you and Shanice broke up?" I asked one night, trying to sound casual. He tensed immediately. "Why are you asking about that?" "Just curious," I said, tracing patterns on his chest to keep it light. "We're good how we are," he said, kissing my forehead dismissively. "I'm taking care of you, right? You got everything you need." But I was beginning to need more than things. I wanted to be able to call him whenever I wanted, not just when it was convenient for him. I wanted to go out in public without worrying about who might see us. I wanted what Shanice had. I started testing boundaries, calling him when I knew he might be with her, asking him to come over on holidays, suggesting weekend trips. Each time, he'd pull back a little more, placate me with more money or gifts. It worked, for a while, until the credit card declined at the nail salon. When I checked the account online, I saw it had been suspended. When Demetrius finally called back, his explanation was vague. "Just a mix-up with the bank. I'll take care of it." But he didn't. Instead, he showed up with cash, but was distant, checking his phone more than usual. "Listen, maybe ease up on the spending for a bit. Business is good, but cash flow is tight right now." I nodded, trying to hide my panic. Without that credit card, without my job, without my friends, what did I have besides him? I decided to make myself indispensable. If he was pulling away because of money problems, I'd show him I wasn't just an expense. Instead of pulling back, I pushed harder. I started showing up at his barbershop, bringing lunch, just because. I'd wait hours sometimes, watching him cut hair, charm customers, manage his business. "You can't just drop by like this," he told me later, voice low and irritated. "I got a reputation to maintain." "I thought you'd be happy to see me," I pouted. "Baby, you know I'm always happy to see you. Just call first." But calling first meant giving him the chance to say no, and I was becoming desperate for any scrap of his attention. My desperation reached a new level when I decided to drive by his main house, the one I knew he shared with Shanice, at least part-time. I'd figured out the address months ago from mail I'd seen in his car. I parked down the street and just sat there, staring at the large 2-story house with its perfect landscaping. There were 2 cars in the driveway, his Benz, and a white Range Rover I assumed was hers. They were home together, on a Tuesday night when he'd told me he was out of town for business. I called him. It went straight to voicemail. I called again, and again. On the 4th try, he finally answered. "What?" His voice was a harsh whisper. "Where are you?" I asked, though I already knew. "I told you, I'm out of town. What's so urgent?" I watched as a light went on in an upstairs room of the house. "You're lying. I can see your car in your driveway." There was a long silence. "Are you at my house right now? You need to leave. Now." I just wanted to see. "Elise, listen to me very carefully. You need to go home. We'll talk tomorrow." "No, I want to talk now. Is she in there with you?" He hung up. I called back immediately, but it went to voicemail. I was about to get out of my car when the front door of the house opened. It wasn't Demetrius who came out. It was a woman, tall and slim with long hair and the confident walk of someone who'd never had to question her place in the world. Shanice. She got into the Range Rover and backed out of the driveway. I should have left then. Instead, I waited until she was gone, then made the worst decision of my life. I drove up to the house and parked right in the driveway. Demetrius opened the door before I could knock. fury radiating from him. "Have you lost your damn mind?" he hissed, pulling me inside roughly. "You lied to me," I said, my voice breaking. "You said you were out of town. So your solution is to stalk me? Show up at my house?" "Your girl just left," I said. "I saw her." His face changed, a flicker of something like panic. "You were watching my house? Following my girl?" "Your girl?" I repeated, the words like a slap. "What am I then?" "You know what you are, Elise. We had an arrangement." "Had? Past tense?" He didn't answer, which was an answer itself. I looked around the house at the expensive furniture, the family photos on the wall, him and Shanice smiling on beaches, at parties, the obvious signs of a shared life that I'd never be part of. "You're going to leave me," I said, the realization hitting me hard. "This isn't working anymore. You're getting too attached, crossing boundaries. You think Shanice is the only one? Baby, you're not even second in line." The words hit me like ice water. "What are you talking about?" "You really think you're special? That no other girl would be happy to get what you got from me? There's 3 of you right now, and you're the most demanding by far." I felt sick. 3? At least you had the sense to accept what it was from the start. "I don't mind being the side chick if he pays." "That's what you said, right?" "Well, I paid. And now you're acting like we had something else." I don't remember much of what happened next. I know I screamed. I know I cried. I know at some point I threw something against the wall. I know he grabbed me hard enough to leave bruises on my arms, pushed me out the door, told me never to come back. The next morning, Shanice called me. "Is this Elise?" Her voice was smooth, controlled. "Who's asking?" As if I didn't know. "This is Shanice Williams. I think we need to talk." She told me to meet her at Starbucks in an hour. When I arrived, she was sitting at a corner table, somehow looking both casual and immaculate. She pushed a coffee cup toward me. "I ordered for you, caramel macchiato with extra caramel and whipped cream." I froze. That was my exact coffee order. "How did you know your coffee order?" She finally looked up, her dark eyes assessing me coolly. "The same way I know you quit your job at Metro Mobile 2 months ago. The same way I know your rent is $1,250 a month. The same way I know you have a birthmark shaped like Florida on your left hip." "He told you all that?" "Demetrius?" She laughed. "No, honey. Demetrius doesn't tell me anything. I find things out on my own. Why would you even care enough to investigate my husband's side pieces? It's a hobby of mine." "Husband?" The word felt like a punch to the gut. "You're married?" She raised an eyebrow, holding up her left hand, where a massive diamond ring caught the light. 5 years next month. He didn't mention that part, did he? He said you were his girlfriend. That you lived separately. "We have multiple properties, but make no mistake, we're very much married, very much living together, and very much a package deal." "Then why am I here? To rub it in?" Shanice studied me for a moment, her expression almost pitying. "I'm not threatened by you, Elise. I never have been. You're not the first, and you won't be the last." "You? No? And you're okay with it?" She shrugged elegantly. "Marriage is complicated. Demetrius has certain appetites. I have certain requirements for my lifestyle. We have an understanding." "An understanding," I repeated numbly. "He gets his freedom, within parameters. I get security, status, and the knowledge that at the end of the day he comes home to me." She leaned forward slightly. "The arrangement works beautifully, as long as everyone stays in their lane." "And I didn't stay in my lane, I guess." "No, you most certainly did not. Showing up at our house? Calling repeatedly while we were having dinner with my parents? That crosses every line." "So you're here to warn me off?" "I'm here to do you a favor, actually." She reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a manila envelope. 3 months' worth of your usual allowance. Enough time for you to find another job, get back on your feet. Like I'm being fired. That's one way to look at it. I prefer to think of it as the end of a contract. I pushed the envelope back toward her. "I don't want your money." She pushed it back. "Don't be stupid. Your rent is due next week, you have no income, and your credit cards are maxed out. Pride doesn't pay bills." "How do you know about my bills?" "I handle our finances," she said simply. "All of our finances. Where did you think the money was coming from? Who did you think approved your credit card purchases? The realization hit me like a slap. It was you, the whole time. She nodded. Demetrius picks them, I manage them. It's our system. That's messed up, I whispered. Perhaps, but it worked quite well until you developed feelings. She said the word feelings like it was a disease. The smart ones understand the transaction for what it is. So this is it? A cash payment and goodbye? That's the deal. Take the money, move on with your life, and most importantly, stay away from our family. And if I don't? Shanice's expression hardened. Let me be very clear. If you contact him again, if you show up anywhere near us, I will make sure you regret it in ways you cannot imagine. I know everything about you, Elise. Everything. 3 months seemed like plenty of time to get my life back on track. I was wrong. The money disappeared faster than I could believe. Without realizing it, I'd developed expensive habits. Finding a job proved harder than expected, too. My old manager wouldn't even take my calls after the way I'd quit. I applied everywhere, but my resume had gaps and my references were sparse. By the middle of the second month, I was desperate. The rent was due, utilities were threatening disconnection, and my car needed repairs I couldn't afford. I called my sister for a loan. I told you this would happen, she said. I can maybe spare a couple hundred, but that's it. Next, I called friends I'd neglected while caught up in Demetrius's world. Some didn't answer. Some, like Keisha, were more direct. You dropped all of us the minute that man started flashing cash, she said bluntly. Now you want us to bail you out? With nowhere else to turn, I called Demetrius. His number was disconnected. I tried everything, texting, emailing, his business website. Nothing. In desperation, I drove to his barbershop, but the new security guard stopped me. Miss Elise, I'm gonna need you to leave the premises. You're on the no-entry list. The third month's money was gone before it even began. Spent on back rent and keeping the lights on. I started selling things, the designer bags, the shoes, the jewelry. Most went for far less than they were worth. One morning, I woke up to an eviction notice on my door. The same day, my car was repossessed. With no car, limited funds, and eviction looming, I was facing homelessness. My sister finally agreed to let me crash on her couch, just until you figure things out. But the judgment in her eyes was almost worse than being homeless. You need to apply for assistance, she told me after I'd been there a week. WIC, food stamps, whatever you can get. I can't feed another mouth indefinitely. The social services office was crowded, fluorescent lit, and smelled like desperation. I sat across from a tired-looking woman who barely looked up from her computer as she asked me questions. Employment status? Unemployed. Previous employer? Metro Mobile. Before that, independent contractor. Income? None currently. Assets? None. She handed me more forms to fill out. Explained the process. Told me it would be at least 3 weeks before I'd know if I qualified. 3 weeks I didn't have. Back at my sister's apartment, I locked myself in the bathroom and stared at my reflection. Without the expensive products and treatments, I was reverting to my old self, only worse, hollow-eyed and haunted. My phone buzzed with a text from Keisha. Heard you're back at your sister's. Let's talk. Coffee tomorrow? After weeks of rejection, the simple offer brought tears to my eyes. I agreed immediately. You look like hell, she said when I arrived at the cheap diner. Feel worse, I admitted. Look, I'm still mad at how you treated everyone, but nobody deserves what you're going through. I deserved some of it, I said quietly. I knew what I was getting into. Did you? Really? She leaned forward. Because from where I was sitting, it looked like you got caught up in something way bigger than you realized. I thought about Shanice, about their system, about how I was just one in a line of women they'd used and discarded. Yeah, definitely bigger. My cousin's restaurant needs servers, she said. It's nothing fancy, but the tips are decent. She'd hire you if I vouched for you. The restaurant job wasn't glamorous. Long hours on my feet, demanding customers, greasy food smell that clung to my hair, but it was something, a start. The tips were cash daily, which helped with immediate needs. I applied for other jobs on my days off, eventually landing a position at a small cell phone repair shop. Between the two jobs, I was working 70 hours a week, barely sleeping. 3 months later, I had enough saved for the security deposit on a tiny studio apartment in a questionable neighborhood. The day I moved in, I sat on my second-hand mattress and thought about everything that had happened. I had said, I don't mind being the side chick if he pays, and I had meant it. The arrangement had seemed so straightforward. I got financial security. He got companionship without complications. But there had been complications. Real feelings sat at least on my side. A wife I didn't know about, other women in the same position. A calculated system of using and discarding women that I had walked right into, eyes wide open. My phone buzzed with a notification. My WIC application had been approved. I was officially on government assistance. 6 months ago, the thought would have mortified me. Now, I just felt relief. I lay back on the mattress, staring at the water stains on the ceiling. This wasn't the end I had imagined when I agreed to be Demetrius's side chick. This wasn't the life I had pictured when I was spending his money, enjoying his attention, convincing myself I was special. But it was my life now. And somehow, in this tiny apartment that smelled faintly of the previous tenant's cigarettes, with my WIC approval and my 2 minimum wage jobs, I felt more real than I had in all those months of false luxury. I don't mind being the side chick if he pays, I had said. He had paid, and then he had stopped, and now I was paying for my choices, for my willing blindness, for believing that kind of arrangement could ever end in anything but this. Broke, blocked, begging for assistance, but still standing, still breathing, still here. I reached for my phone, opened my contacts, and deleted Demetrius's number. It didn't matter that it was disconnected, that he had blocked me everywhere, that I had been erased from his world. This final deletion was for me, a small act of reclaiming control, of accepting reality, of moving forward. It wasn't much, but it was a start.